Hey Money Guy family, it's your host Brian Preston with Mr. Bo Hansen back with another episode of Ask the Money Guy.
That's right. You guys have financial questions. We have financial answers right here in the Tesla. Go out to your favorite social, use the hashtag #AskTheMoneyGuy, or go to a website, moneyguy.com, and ask a question right there.
It's Brian Preston, the Money Guy.
So today's question is actually one, and it's perfect for this time of year. The question is, should I self-prepare my taxes or should I hire a tax preparer? I feel like this is a great question for you, Brian, because rumor has it in a former life, you were actually a tax preparer.
16 years of preparing taxes. So I feel like a old, hardened, field general.
Okay, yeah, when I think of accountants, that's what I think of.
In accounting's terms, I probably am. But here's the thing. I want to go over the three types of people that are out there. There's the hand preparers, there's the self-prepared, and then there are the paid preparers.
Right.
So let's knock these off. Number one, if you are self-preparing by hand.
You mean like actually like printing forms and filling them out and pulling the schedules and putting it all together and sending it off?
I assume you're cooking by campfire too, because there is nobody in the world, and the stats show it, you should not be preparing your tax return by hand. Because here's the problem, guys. The majority of mistakes when you do it that way are going to be because this line 16 will go to line 20, yes or no, and it has this whole flow through process.
Right.
You're setting yourself up for failure by just doing the math wrong or not moving from this row to another row correctly. Just don't do it. It's too easy to go out there and use a self-prepared software package, and that leads to option two. You want to be self-prepared. Look, I'll tell you, if you are analytical, you're kind of nerdy,
organized,
and you're boring, go self-prepare. I mean, the options are incredible, because here's what happens when you use one of the big platforms for self-preparation. And I noticed a lot of them, if you don't have a state tax return, they're actually completely free. Where they get you, I think, is on the state taxes. But the thing I think is interesting is that they go through a questionnaire. It's kind of like a narrative where they'll ask you questions to figure out what's going on in your tax situation. If you are very simple, there's nothing wrong with doing a self-prepared tax package. Take advantage of it. E-file, it gives you a lot of the protections that you have out there. And that leads to option number three. When do you need to do a paid full preparer, and when do you need to consider a CPA? I like people, it really is, are you complex? Do you have a K1 that's coming in because you either have a private investment or you have business income coming in? Do you have rental property where you're depreciating property, you're having to figure out what's deductible, what's not deductible? Do you have a complex situation where maybe you're gifting appreciated things, or you just your situation? Yeah, you got side hustles with a Schedule C. You got farm income with a Schedule F. I mean, there's all kind of unique things. Or maybe you have a household employee with a Schedule H. And there's all kind of curveballs that could come your way. And maybe you're just so busy, you don't want to go through the hassle, and you also want to give yourself the protection that you'd like to have somebody who, that if you ever did have a question, or the IRS sent you a notice, or even, God help you, you had an audit, that you'd have somebody in your corner to kind of represent and protect you. I definitely think you ought to consider graduating up to a paid preparer.
Now, that doesn't suggest that just because you hire a paid preparer, you're immediately going to save a lot more on your taxes, or really, it doesn't even guarantee that your tax return will be differently than you might have done on your own. We've actually had case studies with some wonderful members of the Money Guy family who we've encouraged to hire a paid preparer. The preparer did it, and it was no different than what the client did, and said, well, why am I paying for this? So you may fall into that camp. But part of it is having a little bit of an insurance policy. If you do get that IRS letter, you have someone that can go to bat for you.
If you are an MIT graduate that is self-preparing a return after you've hired a paid preparer, you're defeating the purpose of doing this. They'll recognize that I'm totally calling it out. But in all seriousness, one of the things, how can you tell if you got a good paid preparer versus somebody who's just going through the motions? If you show up with your folder, your organized folder of tax documents, if you feel like all the preparer did was use what you provided and prepared off of that with no inquiry, no questions, no maximization strategies, that's not a good use of resources. You're kind of hoping a good experience, and I'll tell you, this is what I always try to do for my clients, is I wanted to find or at least turn over every stone to hopefully pay for my fee.
Yeah.
I was constantly, because here's the benefit of having a paid preparer. I knew based upon somebody's income or where the levels of incomes were coming from, as well as the way they were living their life, where they're, what deductions they might want to look
yeah.
at, what credits they could look at, and a lot of easy ones. People were never taking the credits for dependent care expenses or things like that, or people were sometimes leaving off some charitable deductions
giving,
or taxes. If you're paying tag fees or you're refinancing the property, there was always some type of deduction. I felt like I could be a value add, ask some questions and dig up things and just pay for myself. A good tax preparer is going to do that for you. And then, like I said, it's nice if because I represented several clients in front of the IRS, it's nice that when you get those scary letters from the IRS, if you know somebody who's going to write as a value add to just part of the tax preparation fee you paid, they'll respond to the IRS, because the IRS gets stuff wrong all the time. Just because you get a tax notice does not mean you're wrong. It just means you might need to have somebody write a letter to the IRS clarifying the issue. And then you want to keep yourself out of jail or at least minimize any expenses. It's nice because you never want to represent yourself at a full audit. So that's probably a great way to close it out. Just make sure, like I said, if you're a cave person that's doing it by hand, move in a different direction, but definitely measure twice, cut once, and get your taxes done properly and accurately, because we want to maximize all those legal deductions. But the key part there, staying legal. So keep the questions coming.
If you guys have a question, go out to your favorite social, use the hashtag #AskTheMoneyGuy, or go to our website, moneyguy.com. You can ask a question right there.
We'll be back soon. I'm your host, Brian Preston, Mr. Bo Hansen.